take two.
Okay, so we'll call the 4 p.m. Thursday, June 27th, Septic Subcommittee meeting to order. As with recent amendments to public meeting law allows, the Septic Subcommittee will hold this meeting remotely. Adequate alternative access to the meeting is provided through the Zoom link or phone numbers on the agenda. In that this meeting is being held remotely, all votes will be taken by roll call. And the meeting is being held remotely due to fiesta occurring downtown and limited parking being available around meeting rooms. So we'll do a quick roll call of everyone here. Thor Akerley, Board of Health member.
Marco Palazzolo, board member.
Eric Kaplan, Board of Health member.
Chief Surgeon Advisor.
Fred Cowan, advisor.
Leslie
Great.
Whalen, sanitarian.
Dominic Curley, Director of Health Department.
Okay, we'll do the approval of minutes. First on the agenda of May 23, 2024. I looked at them. I have no comments. Does anyone else have any comments or questions?
No.
Motion.
I move to approve the minutes of May 23rd, 2024.
Second, all in favor?
Marco,
Thor, yes.
Eric, yes.
All right, Thor, yes. Number 2, we'll move to 169, 171 Atlantic Street, a new construction septic plan for shared system, represented by garages from Williamson's Garages. And Eric, I'll pass off the chair role to you, and I'll recuse myself from this discussion.
Leslie, you want to give a...
Sure.
Chris is going to do.
We have a quorum of the board.
We have at least 2 septic review subcommittee members.
But to approve variance, you need quorum of the board, and that requires 3.
So technically, this may then need to go to a full board meeting.
Next board.
Yep. Yep.
Good call.
So we could ask.
I do recall we've had a couple, just procedurally, I think we have done a majority of the subcommittee, but I don't know if that's technically correct or not, to be honest. I know we have done that in the past, but.
Local regulation.
Only if it's a local, only if it's an upgrade. If it's new construction, it would need a formal board meeting if we don't have a quorum today. Good call.
If you think about it, like before there was a quorum, the decisions had to go to the board. Yes. And then they formed the quorum so that the decisions wouldn't have to go to the board because you had a quorum.
Right.
But if Thor recuses himself, then we don't have a quorum. So we're back to the old days, which is you can evaluate and advise, but you can't judge, you can't authorize.
That's right. You express the will of the board.
So should we table this one, or?
I don't think we need to. I think we can hear it and then we make a recommendation to the full board. That's
Okay.
how it's typically gone.
Okay, good.
Should we have Chris give an introduction and we can show the plan as he's talking?
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound good, Chris?
Yeah, that sounds great. I also have a plan ready to present if that's easier for you. That's up to you.
I'm
Is it a different plan?
yeah, if you want to do it and then you drive, that works for me. Sure.
Okay,
It's the
that's
same.
great. That's great. With your permission, then I'll share my screen.
Yes. Do I need to? I probably have to click something for that, huh?
I believe you have to grant me permission. I'll let you take a look at that real quick.
Okay. See. Here we go. I might have to make you a co-host, or maybe I just have to give you allow.
We can make him a co-host.
I'm gonna make you a co-host.
Okay, great.
You should then have the ability to share.
Yes, that worked. So I'm going to go ahead and just share the same plan that you were just looking at. I threw just a little bit of color on it just so that that we can get a little bit more perspective. And so I understand that if I heard you right, Leslie, just so that before I start my presentation, that that this committee today cannot take a vote on the variance, that you will only be able to make a recommendation to the full board.
Yeah, we can take a vote to make a recommendation
Okay.
to the full board. Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think it's really important to present to the subcommittee so that you folks have the most knowledge on this project. You know, since it goes way back to 2021. So with that, my name is, for the record, Chris Spuragis, professional civil engineer here in the Commonwealth from the Engineering and Survey Office of Williams and Spuragis. And with me here tonight representing the ownership of the property is Michael Hannon. He's one of the panelists. And I think Michael's attorney Jesse Schomer, is in the public, also here with us today. And we're here to request a variance from the Gloucester Board of Health Regulations to allow a leach facility to be placed closer than 200 feet to land subject to coastal storm flowage. So by background, this is a shared septic system that we've submitted for number 169 and 171 Atlantic Street. We refer to these two properties as Lot 2 and Lot 3. This septic design plan has been reviewed by Leslie's office together with your agent who was hired to help peer review, Isaac Durow. And they have reviewed this design and signed off on the technical aspects of it as of June 13th. If you recall, it wasn't that long ago, we were last before you back in April, on April 25th, when we met with the subcommittee, because we wanted to confirm whether or not we needed to seek a variance in this case. And some of the reasons that we discussed were that this proposed leach facility, which I'm circling here on Lot 2, is already approved as a septic system leach facility for Lot 2. And it's
Sorry to interrupt. We
Oh,
had a
sure.
request that you blow up the more pertinent pieces if at all possible.
Sure. Is that close enough for now?
Much better. Thank you, Chris.
Okay. Sure. So so what I've colored here, just for perspective, is a little bit of the two proposed homes. The lot line in between them is here. This is the building sewer that comes from Lot 3 over to the septic tank. This is the singular treatment unit, pump chamber, force main, and then here's the leach facility here. So I was just talking about the leach facility that this exact shape and size and location is the approved leach facility for what we refer to as Lot 2. It's already approved. So we asked the subcommittee whether or not we needed to come before them for this variance, and the subcommittee did confirm that we definitely needed to submit a request for variance because we are within 200 feet of land subject to coastal storm flowage. So a little bit of background, because it's important for the variance criteria and the facts of the case. The permitting on this project, as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, started back in January of 2021. We first submitted septic designs for what we call Lot 1 next door at number 167 Atlantic Street and Lot 2 back in May of 21. These two septic designs were approved by the Board of Health in October of 21. And then you may recall that we had a separate leach facility proposed for what we refer to as Lot 3, roughly in this area here, for which we requested a variance because it was within 200 feet of bordering vegetative wetland. That's the variance that was denied by the Board of Health in January of 22. Even though it had met the Title V criteria at the Board of Health meeting, when we received our denial, the Board of Health members, we were encouraged to go back to the drawing board to come up with a solution, as long as it didn't involve a leach facility within 200 feet of a a wetland. That was very clear. Based on that suggestion, we spent the next 12 months exploring various options. We bounced our ideas off of members of the Board of Health, and we consulted with other engineers and consultants in the area, and also some folks that we know who install innovative alternative systems, folks at Clearwater, some folks at DEP that I know, and we used that information to arrive at the current plan that shows a shared system. This setup allows us to have both of the properties developed the way they were approved by the Conservation Commission, but keeps the leach facility on lot 2, which is more than 200 feet away from the wetland. We received positive feedback upon floating the idea. And then what we did was we submitted the design plan back in February of 2023. The plan was positively received. At that time, we had proposed 5 bedrooms of flow for lot 2 and 4 bedrooms of flow for lot 3. We had about 12 months of back and forth technical review. At the end of the technical review process with Leslie and Isaac, we ended up with less bedrooms than when we started. And so now we have, we've reduced the number of bedrooms from 9 to 6. So for this home, it's 3 bedrooms, and for lot 3, it's 3 bedrooms. The changes ultimately result in a shared system that only proposes a very minor increase in flow to the system on lot 2, which was previously approved for 5 bedrooms. So what we're doing is we're just increasing the flow that's going to this leach facility that's already approved from 5 bedrooms to 6. Now, as you all know, we've worked very closely with the Board of Health and the Septic Review Subcommittee and staff. This is a state-of-the-art septic system that I'll go into some detail in a few minutes. And the intent here is to protect the sensitive nature of the Jones River. We're tributary, our water, when it rains, flows in that direction, and we understand that. This has been a collaborative effort, and for the purposes of presenting the variance, any variance under your regulations, we have to show and explain that a denial in this case would be manifestly unjust, as it renders our proposed lot 3 undevelopable. Now, we also have to show the Board of Health that we've provided a level of public health and environmental protection that's at least equivalent to what's provided for in your regulations. Now, in this case, we can definitely show that the proposed septic system provides even we believe, a higher degree of protection than what was previously approved for lot 2. And what I'd like to just go through is the details on the design, just to refresh your memory and to explain the way the system is designed. This is a DEP innovative alternative system that uses a system called the Singular, and there are many Singular systems installed in Gloucester. It allows us to have a pre-treatment, flow equalization, and that happens in an additional septic tank that's added in front of the reactor, which is the Singular tank in the middle here. In the Singular tank, we have aeration that takes place, and then clarification before the water flows out of the Singular tank and into our pump chamber. And then obviously from the pump chamber, we have a pump system that pumps via a force main up to the leach facility, which is a pressure dose system. The reason that we're here is because of the land subject to coastal storm flowage. I've highlighted that line. I'm going to just zoom out just for a second. It's the blue line that is shown in our plan here. It's elevation 13. That's the limit of land subject to coastal storm flowage. Now, if I zoom in here again, so we can see where the system is, the bottom of the septic system, if you will, where the leaching facility is elevation 20.5. So 20.5 minus 13 means that the leach facility is 7.5 feet above the land subject to coastal stone flowage in this case. That's quite a bit of separation vertically. As you all know, Title V and your regulations, require a regular septic system to only be 4 to 5 feet above estimated seasonal high groundwater. And we're well above that. We're also horizontally approximately 167, just a little bit more than 167 feet horizontally away from the edge of the land subject to coastal stone flowage. This holding tank that we have provides for 24 hours emergency storage above its working level. This is the pump chamber. In addition to the 24-hour emergency storage, which is a requirement in Title V in case there's a power failure, we've added an additional fail-safe as an emergency generator has been added to this design. This was a request of one of the members of the Septic Review Subcommittee. In addition, there's a homeowners association that both lots 2 and lots 3 will be part of as part of this shared system. There will be an ongoing operation and maintenance plan associated with the system. And then that homeowners association establishes a $60,000 reserve fund for ongoing operation and maintenance and ultimate replacement if needed of components or the entire septic system. In this case, Mr. Hannon has agreed to fund the homeowners association reserve fund with $20,000 on day one. And then thereafter, the homeowners will be responsible for contributing annually $2,000. And this homeowners association is in place in perpetuity. The legal documents have been prepared, reviewed as part of our technical review process with Leslie and Isaac. Inside the homeowners association, an attachment, if you will, is the extensive operation and maintenance plan that's been reviewed by Leslie and Isaac. This is also mandated by DEP, of course, for innovative alternative technologies like the Singulair. In addition to the DEP requirements, your local regulations also require certain O&M requirements for systems like this, and we added those to the O&M plan. So those items are in there, and you should know that the requirements include monitoring and sampling reports be submitted to both the Board of Health and DEP on a regular basis. There's also a shared septic system easement agreement. That is something that gets recorded at the Registry of Deeds. This allows both homeowners to have the ability to operate and maintain all the components of the septic system. This is a requirement of DEP. And then a grant of Title V covenant and easement will also be recorded at the Registry of Deeds. Both Leslie and Isaac asked us to provide drafts of these documents so that they could be reviewed as part of the technical review process, and we did that. So in summary, the proposed leaching facility location that we'd like to use has already been reviewed and approved by the Board of Health for the leaching facility for Lot 2. Same size, same location. We are seeking approval to increase the bedroom count for this leach facility from 5 bedrooms to 6 bedrooms. An approval by the Board of Health would actually increase the level of protections in place for this leach facility relative to what has already been approved for Lot 2. And finally, I just want to end by explaining that, we've been at this for quite a while. Our first meeting before this board was held in July of 2021. And since that time, we've worked diligently and collaboratively and in good faith with you and your staff. So for these reasons, we have respectfully requested a variance from this section of your local regulations. According to your book there, it's section 2, which is design requirements, table 1, setback from coastal resource area for land subject to coastal storm flowage in this case. So that's the end of my formal presentation. And both Michael and I are here to answer any questions that you might have.
Discussion? Any questions?
Would you like me to take the plan down, Leslie, or just still leave it up?
Yeah, why don't we unshare you so I can see the participants, because I do think, some of the, attendees, I should say, may want to raise their hands and give comment if none of the, we can move to that if none of the, board members.
Yeah. I would ask Dave to add his, and our two consultants.
Yeah.
And Fred to add their thing.
I'd ask, what fuel do you intend to use to power the generator?
So the generator, I believe will be, our options would be, using, diesel or natural gas or propane. Those would be the choices. We haven't, made that decision yet, but, we're open to, different ideas.
If you have access to it, I'd have preference of natural gas.
That would be the best.
No spillage.
Just thinking out loud for a minute, I'm trying to remember, I don't think natural gas exists down here. But
No, then it would be propane.
propane, I believe, would be the appropriate choice then.
Right.
Much.
Leslie, my opinion is that they're adding one bedroom to an already approved system, and the previous application was for was a lot closer to the wetland. This protects the environment much better than the previous application, and I think it would be a manifest injustice to not grant this because it's only an increase from for one bedroom to an already approved septic system.
I agree. I agree.
Leslie, what's your take on this?
My notes that I put in the packet were to grant, my recommendation is to grant the variance. And my reason was, as discussed at the April 25th Septic Subcommittee meeting, pre-treatment would be a reasonable exchange for this variance request. And then I added that the bottom of elevation of the proposed leach area is 7.5 feet above the land subject to coastal storm flowage elevation 13. And the septic system is 167 feet away from land subject to coastal storm flowage. So I agree with granting the variance based on those reasons. Any attendees? I'm surprised none of them have raised their hand to
So
ask
does
questions.
everybody know, it looks like 1, 2 hands are raised.
Oh, there they are. Oh, thank you. Oh, good.
And if I could just let the audience know, if you hit, raise your hand. And how did they do that? Do you know how they raise their hand?
I don't, but maybe when
Okay.
we can ask one of these fellows to talk, John Meyer.
Hello, can you all hear me okay?
Yeah, and before you get started, John, can you let folks know how to raise their hand? Because we're not sure how to.
At the bottom of your screen in the middle, if you hover over it, there's a raise hand, lower hand button. You have to move your cursor down to the bottom middle of the screen.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Yep.
much.
Okay, can I go?
Yes, please.
Okay, so John Myers, resident at 198 Atlantic Street, the last A-frame for the other subdivision. First off, I think the applicant has done and the septic subcommittee has done a good job with the generator and trying to create provisions to protect the environmental condition. They've done everything that I think has been asked, which is good to see. I don't have a problem with people who want to build houses in the area. I do have a problem with the way the variance application is written, the one that was dated 4/26/24 and signed 5/23. The problem I have is that the only reason given is that it's, quote, manifestly unjust. So we just heard that the lot being deemed undevelopable would be deemed unjust. There's really not any provisions that guarantee every property by the water to be deemed developable. So first off, I think we just need to change the wording on the documentation because it establishes future precedent to allow other developments to follow the same path by claiming something is just manifestly unjust without, I know you guys have given proper reasons and proper engineering and gone through the process, but we just can't have that be on the record, is my opinion. Furthermore, variance is the power to vary, the law states the power to vary the application of zoning ordinance must be exercised sparingly. We don't want this to create a massive loophole in the future. We want this to be a situation where it is indeed exceptional circumstance. So whatever we can put into the application to prevent future development in this area, in the resource or adjacent to the resource areas, I would request that we do so. And I think you'll hear tonight that there is provisions in the law that says these variances should not negatively affect the public good. I think there's a lot of folks around here who are very concerned about leaching fields adjacent to the resource areas. And I think those people should be given an opportunity to talk tonight. I think the applicant has demonstrated that why what they've done is good for them and their property. I'm struggling with how this is in the public interest, but it's also, we should allow people to build houses. I have a problem with the 33-foot incursion, and that being set as a precedent. I would just ask that we create something in the approval documentation that demonstrate that this is indeed exceptional and rare, and that the applicant has done years of work to try and get it to here, so that future applicants must achieve the same standard. I think that would be in the public interest, and so that's what I have to say. And thanks for listening to me.
Thank you, John. Robert Bishop is next. You want to unmute, Robert?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Robert Bishop, 176 Atlantic Street, obviously Gloucester. I just wanted to I did attend a meeting with the Board of Health for the food trail at the campsite. And the Board of Health made it very clear that the Jones River is in fact contaminated, which we all know it is. And we're trying to get it back to normal for the clam flats and the livelihood of our clammers. So the Board of Health during that time made it very challenging for a local businesswoman to allow a simple gray water tank to go into a tight tank that was going to be pumped once a week. And the campsite owners as well were willing to actually pump it twice a week. And remind you, it was only gray water. It's not septic. And as we know, shit runs downhill. So I ask, how can this variance of 33 feet to 167, where 200 feet is the law, be allowed? This project is not a hardship and is not in the public interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Kathy, you want to unmute yourself?
Sure thing. So I also want to touch on the hardship factor. When we speak of hardship, we say, my mother-in-law is living in that house next door. We'd like her to join into our septic design. Hardship isn't a developer saying, I want to make more profit. I want you to give me an exception so I can profit from it. And that's basically what we're listening to, in my opinion. One other thing I want to point out is the approved septic systems for lot 1 and 2. The developer came to you with not twice as many bedrooms, but more bedrooms than you approved. And you had him cut back the size of those duplexes because you said the lot size wouldn't support the future of the septic system. Would it fail? Would you have enough land to cope with that? So now you just want to add on to it. To me, it seems like you're backtracking. The other point I want to bring up is that I believe that the developer should be allowed to develop the land within the setbacks that we currently have. And that developer will do a good job. But when I look 10 years down the road and you have 3 families in a home, an HOA, trying to agree that they're going to spend that money on either a failed system or a system that needs work, to me, it's untenable. It just doesn't seem plausible. Instead of having a duplex, 2 families, now you're adding on the next doors, neighbors, the lot. So to me, the future of this design depends on the integrity of the homeowners. And I can tell you that most people don't pump their tanks. They don't keep their septic systems up to snuff because it's a hidden expense. You only spend money when you have to. I would say, no, let him do a little bit more design work. That's my opinion. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Kathy. Cindy, do you want to unmute yourself?
Certainly, I have to figure out how.
You are. There you go. Cindy?
Hi, Cindy.
We can
Hi,
hear
my
you.
name is Cindy Fortier, and I have property at 194 and 196 Atlantic Street. And as we see these projects that are coming up for consideration, I understand that the 200 feet rule was set in place to protect the Jones River, and I don't understand why all of a sudden these developers are coming in and feel that they should be able to change the rules to fit their needs. I think that this is setting a precedent for the street and for the area, especially around the Jones River, that we're trying to protect, that is not going to be beneficial for the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Seems like, Cindy, did you mean to raise your hand again? I think she just finished.
I tried to unmute myself.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't look like anybody else has any other comment. Eric, do you want to call a vote at this point if there's no other comments?
Yes. I'd like to call a vote for approval of the variance request on 169 and 171 Atlantic Street.
To advise the board the same.
Yeah, yes, to advise the full board.
I agree. I think we should have a full board.
I'm sorry, I think I might have confused things. I don't think that's what Eric was calling for. I think Eric was calling for.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're voting on that now?
You need a second for the motion.
Yeah, we need a second for the motion to
Aye.
grant, to recommend to the full board to grant the variance.
I second recommendation.
Roll call vote,
Yes.
Marco, yes.
and those are the two, okay. So we'll send this on to the full board, our next meeting, maybe in about 2 weeks, is that right?
Yeah.
In 2 weeks on a Thursday night. That agenda will get posted at least 48 hours before the meeting. And it's usually held at the Harbor Masters.
This actually now going to be held at the Rose Baker Center.
It'll be held at the Rose Baker Center, so.
Oh, it's gonna be those days.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
Please.
Yeah, I know.
I should be.
Yeah.
All right. Thor, do you want to come back and lead the meeting for the next portion?
So Leslie, before we jump off, can I just ask a question? I might have missed what you said about when the Board of Health meeting is.
The exact date, I'm not sure of. I think it's in about 2 weeks. It's on a Thursday night.
It's normally the first Thursday of every month, but sometimes it's the second Thursday. That's why we're not sure. So yes, because we get bumped by budget and finance, depending on if they're meeting or not.
So this will be an agenda item at that meeting.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. Thank you everyone for your help.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, we can move to 41 Hugh Ave. I'm just pulling up the agenda. Apparently I closed it. But this is a repair, leaching field for the Cupboard Restaurant. And a variance is being requested for setback to land subject to coastal storm flowage as well here. I'll let John take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and advisors. For the record, John Judd, engineer with Gateway Consultants, representing Cynthia Carter and the Cupboard Restaurant. Looks like Leslie is bringing that up. Thank you. This is an upgrade to the failed system that exists for the seasonal restaurant known as the Cupboard at 41. It's a good Hugh Ave or Huff Ave, no one really knows. But in any event, we're all familiar with the structure, I believe. So this is a situation. This is a seasonal business. They're only open between June 1st and Labor Day. So it's basically 90 days out of the year that they're operational. And with that said, they don't have public restrooms. They have outdoor seating, the tables out back. You can see the picnic tables, those of you that have eaten there, 26 seats on the inside. And so what we're proposing is and we had very good soils here. We did have a shallow water table. The perk test was fine, and the soils were very sandy. We are, in my opinion, over designing this system for this seasonal use. The water use meter readings for this seasonal use for the daily use of the 90 days that are operational are anywhere from 500 to 700 gallons per day. This system has been designed for almost 1,200 gallons a day. Just on the theoretical flow for a fast food restaurant. Again, no public restrooms, and we do have most of these seats are outside. So there's really not a lot of opportunity for a lot of water use. So again, for those 3 months, we're designing for a system here for over almost 1,200 gallons a day for 12 months a year. So with that said, we are looking for 2 local relief variances from the local regulations. One is a 1 foot reduction to 1 foot reduction to the seasonal high water table, and the other is a 25% reduction in that leaching area for the aforesaid reasons. And the last is the local regulation to be 200 feet from land subject to coastal storm flowage. The gravel parking area on the public side, just below the screen here, it's shown if you were to toggle out, but it's the gravel area is land subject to coastal storm flowage, elevation 14 in this case, which is from wave action that comes up during those periodic events, which this particular facility is closed anyway during the winter and spring months. So that's it. We're proposing a pressure distribution system. We have really good distribution of the effluent. We have a grease trap, which all of which does not exist now. Everything goes into a cesspool that goes directly into the groundwater. So we have a pretty significant upgrade in treatment for the system. We do have an oversized septic tank, oversized pump chamber, and a grease trap for the kitchen flow. And that's the presentation. I can answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
John, where is the cesspool?
I'm sorry, Fred, I can't really hear what you asked.
Where is the cesspool?
The cesspool right now is, if you look at behind the where it says where the water comes in, it's right in that area there. There's it's not much to it. I talked to Ronnie Strong. He opened up the lid, and It's not, it might be an old drum or something. No one really knows, but it's in that
I'm walking.
location right there.
Well,
We want it. Who? The owner does not own across Georgia Way?
The owner does not,
That area there, where Leslie's now touching?
Isn't this part of the same lot? over
yes,
here?
it is, yeah.
So my question would be, why not put it over here? You might be able to get close to the 200-foot setback to the land subject to coastal storm flowage.
That area, if I could, that's obviously across the street, and what's known as Georgia Way. There's an easement that comes down through there. That whole area does collect standing water. As a young person, I used to skate there. So that whole 16-foot contour collects all the runoff from the hillside and surrounding area, and that is basically a pond during the springtime months. So we stayed away from that. You can see we're a bit higher on, and it obviously makes sense for the components to be outside the traveled way. That area that we describe as land subject to coastal storm flowage is, to the bottom of the screen it's a gravel parking lot. That's not a resource area. The only resource area is over near Cressy's Beach. Yeah, that's very helpful there. So you have the paved parking area, and then you have gravel parking that's associated with the Stage 4 Park, the hillside there.
Does her lot continue up to the picket fence? High up?
on the right-hand side.
Yeah. There. Is that the property line?
So, John, is this the property line here?
I'm not seeing your cursor, Leslie. Hold on. Let me, that's a vertical stone wall over there.
And that's the property line, right?
Correct. Yep.
This is a picket fence.
There's a picket fence, but that whole area is walled off by 8-foot tall hedge.
Yeah, there's lots of tree and bushes and stuff in there.
What is your guys' point?
Is there some agreement with neighbors that you're not able to see things like that, that they're not considering using that land?
So you're wondering why not use this land here?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
It would be a little bit further from this land subject to coastal storm flowage, maybe 10 feet further at most. It actually isn't that much further away. I looked at that too, wondering the same thing. Maybe that gets us further away. It doesn't get us much further away. So I don't know if it's worth making a fuss over unless there's other reasons.
How many feet is it now?
102. There may be other reasons to get it further away from the patio, because John was saying his reason for asking for a 1-foot reduction to groundwater has something to do with grading and drainage relative to the patio. So for that, I might say, well, then move it away. John, can you tell us more about why you are asking for a 1-foot reduction to groundwater?
Yeah, it's for that reason that you mentioned. So if we raise that up a foot, number one, you have a higher wall. Number two, you have a situation where the water cannot be necessarily draining down the hill. So you're raising that up another foot to create that, again, a retaining wall, and then the water coming down the hill would be compromised, as far as the restaurant and that lower facility. That was the reasoning. And again, the aforementioned seasonal use. This is, if you just step back and look at this, the size of this leaching facility for the seasonal use, this is a substantial increase in treatment and so forth.
I think it's important to note, if I
Yeah.
don't appreciate, is that this building can be sold, this business can be sold. So saying that it's only going to be used for 3 months is a
Yeah.
current moment, but it could easily become an all year round event.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we should just be thinking of it as a solution because it's a seasonal use. That's only a 3-month investment.
And in that mindset, is there a deed restriction that says there cannot be public restrooms? John, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm sure they'd be open to it. They're trying to obviously stay in business. They'd like to open up for the season. With
But
the,
no, but my question is there a deed restriction preventing them from having public restrooms?
Not
there
likely.
is none, Fred, but we're open to that.
We wouldn't, I don't think we would entertain that
No,
because
but
the plumbing code would
That's the
require
issue.
it.
That's the issue. So that there could be.
That's right.
And
There could-
it's designed for that,
It
Fred,
need
but
to be designed for having public restrooms. And also a change in menu.
Yeah, so John, with the 25% reduction in leaching area, it's only size for 870 gallons per day,
yep,
which is pretty close to the current water usage of 480 to 700 gallons per day,
yep.
or at least the 700 month was. So for that reason, I would recommend that the board not grant the reduction, the 25% reduction in area, because the bathrooms, though they may be currently grandfathered to not provide public restrooms, whenever there's 20 seats or more, and this place has more than 20 seats, restrooms are required. So if a renovation would happen, or if somebody else bought the establishment, they would need to comply with that requirement. I think that currently the restrooms aren't open to the public, and this establishment's been around for over 20 years, so it's grandfathered. So going forward, I think it would be important to make sure that restrooms are open and available to the public.
Yeah.
I know that currently the bathrooms are through the kitchen, so it really would be in the future with a renovation that the bath, they may be required to put in a bathroom for the public. So that's my thought on that one.
Yep.
If
go
I could, Mr. Chairman, we do have the component for upgrades, as you know, for considering cost for manifest injustice for, obviously we're doing a tremendous upgrade here, a substantial cost for this system for a seasonal use. The chances of this ever being anything more than that is remote, because they rely so much on the parking that is on the city property. So could something happen in the future? I suppose anything's possible, but it's just something to consider when someone's trying to upgrade. They don't make a lot of money here. This is not a big money-making establishment. So to put in this system that's going to be over $100,000 is, that component has to be considered by the board according to Title V anyway.
Yeah, John, I can see what you did here, and I agree generally. I think it blends into the slope pretty well, and I guess my kind of thoughts are, sort of similar to some of the members. My fear, I guess, is partially that the place does sell too, and does it have adequate flow? I think I'm okay-ish with the size reduction, but I agree there's some fear there. When we're talking about a groundwater reduction, especially when we have land subject to cold storm flowage, that makes me a little not super uneasy, but a little bit. I know most towns, it's different in every town, right? But sometimes they make you do an alternative system if you're requesting a groundwater reduction. I get we're getting better, distribution in the field and that, but I guess my feeling is, that it's hard to see the cost like rising that dramatically. If you were to expand the field a little bit, to meet that 100, if that's what the board, and members really are pushing for, towards that through map 21684 parcel to the right there. The field could be expanded a little bit. I don't think that would be the end of the world. And then, if you had to build the wall a foot higher to meet the groundwater setback, you know, I get it, but the water does look like it comes down there already, and then you're adding a swale kind of on the upper side of the field to divert the water. I think that'll help a little. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm feeling. And I agree. I wouldn't put it on the other field too. It's wetter over there. I've been down there a lot too, and this is a little bit higher, and I think that makes your location makes some sense to me.
If I can pipe in, I agree with Thor that a little bit further up the slope would make some sense, and making it a little bit larger shouldn't add a great deal of cost to it. But I also note that in this plan, it looks like the sewer line's crossing the water line, and there's no mention of sleeving either of those. And usually when there's a request for a variance from land subject to coastal storm flowage, I'd like to see the separation between the bottom of the leach field and, you know, the land subject to coastal storm flowage, and I didn't see that, as well as I didn't see the location of the existing system on this particular plan. I also note that this is closer to land subject to coastal storm flowage than the one that we just approved, and the one we just approved did have advanced treatment, and this one is not proposing that as well. You know, those are my observations.
I did have one note about the plan as well. It looks like the grease trap goes directly to the pump chamber. Am I reading that correctly? Probably just a drafting error, but
that is correct, Thor. So that again, that's gray water. That should be going into the tank for treatment after the grease trap. So that would be, that line should be brought over. So you are correct there, but and we can certainly take care of that. I just wanted to get back to the land subject to coastal storm flowage. As you know, Title V, the state regulations have a 0 setback to that. This is a local regulation. So I just wanted to make sure all the members, you know, that are not familiar with that are aware of that, because there is no regulation and to keep it set back from horizontally or vertically above land subject to coastal storm flowage. That's a theoretical number that some people agree with, some people don't. Obviously, the numbers are based upon models that have been contested in town, and they change. But with that said, the component to raise it up a foot and to make it 25% bigger, just the sand alone will cost over $20,000. So to add that on to $100,000 system for a seasonal restaurant, it's completely the board's decision. But if you know, you're not really considering the financial component, in my opinion, for an upgrade system. But with that said, everything is considered here, and the board can vote any way they want on this. But you know, there's good reasons on both. But to say it's not a big deal, and another foot's not going to be a big deal, and making another 25%, that's just not the case. This is a very expensive system for a property that just doesn't generate income to that level. But I understand the future use could change. There's no question, but the board does have the ability to place restrictions or conditions on any variances that they may decide to grant. Thank you.
John, the $20,000, that represents the 25% increase?
No, so what I'm saying, Leslie, yeah, it's not only that, but Thor is, I guess, leaning toward raising it up another foot. So now you have that entire square footage of, 45 by 27, including, then you add on the overclear. Title V sand for that amount of area, just raising that up, not increasing it 25%. I'm just talking about raising it up vertically. That's $20,000 worth of sand. We just went through this over at 20 Fuller Street. By just raising it up the 9 inches, the bids came back $20,000 more.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, $20,000 just for 9 inches of sand. So, you know, these are big decisions that if you step back and you look at the seasonal, it doesn't even have heat. This building, if you go inside it, it's a slab. This was built in the 40s. You know, this is an upgrade. If someone had a beach cottage and, you know, you could say, well, yeah, I understand it can go up to a larger, but this is everything here would have to be considered by zoning board of appeals. If any kind of an increase or any renovation to this is completely non-conforming structure, that would all come back to the Board of Health for opinion for those boards and this board, should they decide to have any kind of restriction on this. We're trying to do something here to remediate a very bad situation and keep these folks opening, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen that way.
Well, maybe one potential solution, I don't know, I agree with you, John, like in the current use, like this is oversized. Like I completely agree with that point. I don't know if maybe like in the present use, I'm happy with the system. I did see it's about 3 feet higher than the, FEMA floodplain. Like maybe, we could require something to the effect of, if the property ever sold or the use changed, they have to expand the leaching field, to be 100% capacity of what was, proposed here originally. I don't know. That's just a thought, but.
And that's acceptable. That's, I should say that's acceptable to the applicant. Thank you.
I'm wondering if you moved it up gradient, would you have to bring in as much Title V sand?
If we moved it up gradient, if I could, Dave, what we typically do, and Leslie, correct me, is we hold that elevation of the groundwater from the highest contour. So we've gone through this in the design review. So in other words, if we have the groundwater at, say, test pit 2 at 36 inches, and I'm just speaking arbitrarily because I don't have the results right there, but then if we moved it up, then it's just going to be reflected from that. So if we have, say, elevation 18 and we move it up gradient to that contour, now we're raising it all up accordingly. So there's no difference in that elevation because we're raising it up correspondingly.
You would be using you might have 4 feet of sea material above seasonally high groundwater, though.
We'd have to go back out and do more soil testing, though, to show that, because like John was saying, we extrapolate the groundwater going up the hill. So we require the let's assume it was at 36 inches. We assume it's 36 inches to groundwater going up the hill. So we'd have to do more soil testing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But normally, particularly in a wash material, the further you go up the hill, there isn't as much drainage to it. And in that area across Georgia Way, does pond, and you wouldn't get that as much.
I guess to John's point, the test pits were elevation 17.22 at the highest. Even if you slid the field all the way, 10 feet from the property line along that stone mortared wall, you'd have to well, again, it depends, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know, John, if it's worth even exploring that, if they'd save money in the design and installation, but on the installation, but maybe not.
You're suggesting if we move it up to elevation 18, hopefully,
or 20 is the high contour, like around that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
To blend it in closer with the slope, you mean, if what Dave's saying, it's a static water table.
Yeah.
And I'm not even saying that, or to do that. I guess it's just a thought in my mind. Maybe and Dave's, I think, is pointing to this too. They could save a good bit of money on the sand if the groundwater
Right.
is, 65 inches up there. I don't know.
Yep, that's a good point.
Or did anybody have anything to say from the audience?
Oh yeah. Do we have any members of the public here that would like to comment or have any questions?
Let's see.
I'd like to ask a question. This has been in, was given warning 2 years ago, or more than that, I think. And it's been 2 years and now we're at the threshold of, you can't operate. You could have taken action earlier. And I think Mr. Sargent's question about why aren't we doing pre-treatment at this close to the water is a really good one. And if the only answer is cost, that begs the question of let's see the quote. Let's see the financial inability for the applicant to pay.
And septic one.
Yes, but it's a business, that's the problem.
Okay, so again, I'm gonna just repeat my response to that. There is no setback requirement in Title V vertically or horizontally from land subject to coastal storm flowage.
There are no local regulations.
I understand. No, it's as far as offsets above groundwater, the flood zone, that's not true. There is nothing in your regulations. That's an arbitrary number. There's nothing that says vertically you should be 1 foot above ground, land subject to coastal storm, the flood zone. So that's not accurate.
I'm sorry, isn't the map showing us that you're within 100 and some odd feet from?
Vertically, there's no vertical separation requirement above the flood zone in any regulation.
Vertical,
Yeah,
but horizontal.
So that's not accurate. So to state that to the people on the commission in the audience, that's just not accurate.
You're saying that, Mr. Judd, I didn't say that. You're asking for a variance. And in that variance, you're talking about the distance.
We're talking about both. We're talking about horizontal and vertical separation. And you just said, if I'm not mistaken, that we're looking for something above the flood zone. We're not.
I didn't say that. I said you're inside of the margins of the buffer zone. And you commented on the fact that it's Title V. And I commented on the fact that our local regulations call for the buffer zone to be attended to.
John, how do you account for the absence of biomass once the restaurant opens if we don't have pre-treatment?
Fred, I heard some of that. Am I confident that something?
Can you repeat?
Oh, I'm sorry. How do you account for dealing with the absence of the biomass for a seasonal restaurant if you don't have pre-treatment? You're putting
whether treatment is
untreated septic for weeks, are you not?
Yeah. So what you have is a situation on these septic systems that biomat has to form over a period of time. It needs food, as you know, to create that, the organisms to form and to have. So what we're doing is pressure distribution that goes across this entire very large field. So you have the seasonal flow, whether it's treated or not, you need the nutrients to come in, the food for the bacteria to form.
Yeah,
so,
but with pre-treatment, what you are delivering to your leach field is a hell of a lot cleaner from the get-go than.
No question. You have better treatment there, but right now we have a situation that it's going into the groundwater through basically an injection well, this whatever it is that's there. And I'm just going to make a note that we show where that is because that was a comment. So, again, we're looking to upgrade an existing situation. That's what we're trying to do, is to remediate this. And considering local upgrade approval standards. So if the board does not want to do that, then that's fine. That's something they can vote on. But in our opinion, we're doing something here that's much better than what's there now at a reasonable cost. If we put in advanced treatment, that requires $1,000 a year for review, for inspection, testing.
Yeah.
We're going into another level, which if that's what the board needs, there's no resource areas here. There's no wetlands. We have over 100 feet from an imaginary, in my opinion, setback, a gravel parking lot that everyone parks their cars and the oil drippings and whatever goes down there. This is anyone that's been down a stage 4 park across the street, it's all lawn. That's all where people have campfires using, you know, kerosene, you know, and starter fluid for their, you know, charcoal. We just have to step back and look at this, in my opinion, but the board can vote any way they want on this.
John, I do kind of agree with you. You know, on the last case, obviously there's a very sensitive wetland and salt marsh adjacent to the project. You know, I agree this is a lot different, and I know we're probably 300 or so feet to the ocean. I don't know. So I guess my potential solution would be, acknowledging that this is a seasonal use with limited flow. They don't have bathrooms in the building. Acknowledging that, and then saying, you know, as part of any approval, and I don't know how this gets documented appropriately, but, you know, if there ever is a change in use, you know, to the building or the restaurant where they add bathrooms, you know, the system, you know, be either upgraded to, you know, full compliance with Title V. And I've worked in a couple situations where you can add on to a leaching field, you know, that's new. I don't know if that changes for pressure distribution, if that complicates things a bit. You know, but maybe doing that and or requiring advanced treatment as part of that process as well. That would be, I don't know, maybe one way where everyone's happy. I don't know, but just my thought.
And again, that's acceptable to the applicant. They're trying to do this in a reasonable fashion. You know, to say that, you know, it's not a big deal, throw an advanced treatment. It is a big deal. It's not required under the state. You're allowed, it's routinely granted to go for these local upgrade situations. And I understand Gloucester historically, and I've always done that when we're within 100 feet or 200 foot of a wetland or a coastal bank, we always use advanced treatment. This is different. This is not the same situation. To say it is not accurate, because the flood zone is an imaginary number in terms of exact. Like to say it's 14, when they changed these maps 10 years ago, it was elevation 10 a day before, and then it goes to elevation 14. We could have a specialist do a study, and they would say the elevation 14 is make believe. It just doesn't exist. That would say Commercial Street is going to be above. It's going to go all the way up. You know, it's going to change soon. You know, but I'm not saying the coastal coastal warming is happening and the flood elevation is right. There's no question that is happening, but to come up with these arbitrary numbers is not accurate.
Yeah. The garage, yeah. We put it in 25 years ago.
So there is also the question of whether or not to grant the request for a temporary tight tank so that they can open this season. I don't know if we want to talk about that now, or we want to wait until we decide on what John should do with this plan if we aren't going to approve it.
Did anyone have thoughts on what I said, or what are everyone's thoughts?
Tight tank would enable them to open the restaurant.
Yeah.
Correct? There would be zero pollution.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Thor. I mean, it's a pretty good upgrade from what it's there now, right? I mean, right now it's not operational. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think as long as we have those stipulations in mind, if we're to sell or change, I don't see why it would be a problem.
Yeah, I do think it should go against the deed, you know, be recorded, so it's actually done, but I don't know. That's my only other thought.
Just to be clear, that's the proposed septic tank and the grease tanks as temporary holding tanks. It's not a tight tank solution that's being proposed.
Right.
Like, so the design flow, like how much that can hold is relevant, correct?
I shouldn't have brought up the issue of the tight tank yet, because Thor and Marco are still talking about the full plan. So let's hold off on talking about the tight tank.
But that's just before we stop talking about the tight tank,
Okay.
it is part of the plan. It's part A, B, but not C.
The tight tank plan is to let them build just a portion of this plan,
Yes.
which is the tanks.
Yeah.
And use them temporarily just as tight tanks.
Yeah.
Um,
But we have no objection to the grease tank and the septic tank. There's no contention about that.
right,
So what we are allowed, what you would allow them to do is to install at least that part
exactly,
and nothing further.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
that's
they could, therefore, that's the quickest way for them to open.
correct.
There's nothing existing in the ground now that they're gonna reuse.
Correct.
And I have no problem with it, as long as they have the details, the floors indicated. You know, it's all on the road sometimes. That or
Thor, could you hear Eric?
No,
No,
He was expressing support for your ideas of if there's a change in use, if there are bathrooms for the public, to put something on the deed to require what you were suggesting.
come back.
It would have to come back to the board, he said.
With that, I would be happy.
And with that, he'd be happy.
Dave or Fred, do you have thoughts on that?
I concur with him.
This season only.
Yeah, if there's any change at all, this has to come back is all, but I take John's point that the service that they are running now is minimal. And, yeah, I mean, this isn't, obviously it's an improvement over going into a cesspool. But they can't have bathrooms, they can't expand, they can't really do much of anything, without coming back to the board. And I don't imagine, from listening to John, that the business prospects of doing that are highly likely. It's just the part, I mean, it's just, the ZBA would have a hand in it, it'd be a mess. So I don't imagine that right away that there'll be a change in use.
This system will have some inspection because it's pressure distributed.
Yeah.
Will there be effluent sampling as well?
Not typically with pressure distribution.
I'm wondering if it could be done for this one, just to make sure that it hasn't gone haywire.
What frequency? And
Once a year,
when they do the pressure distribution maintenance,
right?
where do you sample a pressure distribution system actually?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right, we're running into this same problem as we did with Presby.
Yeah.
Or what's the alarm system on a grease tank?
There is none, Fred. What you have is you have detention time. You have two baffles that come in, and obviously they extend down to the bottom to allow that grease to kind of coagulate and cool before it exits. So you have these larger, if you look at the page 2 on the detail sheet, you can see it, but there is no alarm system on that. It just, that has to be pumped out periodically. Yeah, thanks for putting that up. You can see the grease trap interceptor has an outlet baffle that extends 12 inches off the bottom, and that's to allow that any hot greases that come in to
But
be.
these runners have no experience working with a grease trap, correct?
Correct.
They have internal grease trap. They have one, but those are just not effective.
Okay. So what informs the restaurant owner that it is time to have the grease trap pumped?
That's when you have an on-site sewage disposal system, so let me just back up just a little bit. They tried for years to try to get connection to the sanitary sewer system, the municipal system that's at the top of the hill over on Western Ave. And that's the best solution because everything goes down there for full treatment. When you have these on-site systems, Fred, you have to be, as you know, diligent. You have to, as a homeowner, as a property owner, as a business owner, you have to really take care of, it's like a car. You got to make sure everything's, you know, the oil's changed, et cetera. So that is really up to the property owner in this case. That doesn't prohibit the board, should they decide to approve the plan, and they can do it at any time, is to require inspections primarily on that grease trap. That would be, if I was on the board, I would look for more reporting and record keeping on an annual basis for that, at a minimum, for that grease interceptor tank, is that, to me, is critical to this whole system and the longevity.
Not a simple one.
Especially with French fries, fry laters, fried clams, everything that they serve.
No vegetables there. So John, you don't think it's worth it to test higher on the hill? In your opinion?
Do I think it's worth it
Yeah.
to go up the hill to test?
Do you think it's worth it or no?
You're talking about the hill going up Tolman Ave,
Yep.
up toward Georgia Way, toward Tolman Ave.
Yeah. I haven't been out. You were there for the holes, so
Yeah. I mean, the soil,
Yeah.
like I said, is good. The reason we did it there is because it was closer to the cupboard. And as you can see, that is, I think you brought it up, Thor. If you go over 20 feet, you're going to go up maybe 8 inches.
Yeah.
So that doesn't give you a lot in terms of, so if you have that static water table, it's not going to gain you a lot by going up there.
John, do you mean in terms of sand that you mean?
Well, the offset to groundwater. I think what Thor's trying to help out with is if we brought it up, we can blend it more in with the slope and still maintain that offset to groundwater.
I'm wondering if just poking a hole or two up there really wouldn't take that much time. And if it didn't make that much difference, then not do that. But it could make a big difference, not only with the cost to these people who can't get a septic loan program, it could be cost effective for them.
I don't disagree. Don't disagree.
Yeah, to your point, you're right. If you go to if the lower side of the system's at the 18 contour on the hill, you're only picking up 0.8 inches based on the current location. So you're right, it's not a ton, but I don't know, with the cost of sand, I don't know. So I'm fine with it if you, I don't know, don't want to, if you're comfortable with it, but
I mean, we did talk about it with the homeowners. They wanted to keep, I mean, the property owner, Cynthia, she wanted to keep it there. She had concerns about using that area for the future, but right now the board is this plan in front of them with those restrictions that would be acceptable. If there's any change in use, I think we can all agree this is better than this there now. Can it be done better? Can we put in much more robust treatment? Yes, we can do that, but I can tell you it's going to be extremely expensive for them to put in advanced treatment for this amount of flow. We all know that. And then, you're going to be adding more maintenance that's required on a quarterly basis.
Yeah. And got to get that grease trap inspected a lot the first year, because I just don't believe that they'll have the innate sense of keeping track of that. I don't think they have any idea what grease they produce.
Well, we could ask them to provide, monitoring, or, the pump out records of it. I think they may be required to provide that already. I'm actually not sure for grease traps. I don't think they are typically for restaurants, but we could ask for that when it is pumped to help ensure that it's getting done. Another thing that's difficult to track, but
And again, anything can be recorded at the registry, so it goes with chain of title. People are aware of it, should they decide to, lease out the property or whatever it is from them. I really don't understand what's going on with the ownership. There's been things coming back. Leslie and I have had conversations. I've talked to Gabby about it, and I'm not getting all the information, but as a board, I think you have to prepare for the future of, this could sell tomorrow at different, but if you have these things in place, then you're covered. Anyone that buys it or leases it is aware of these restrictions and requirements for testing and for limitations on the use, as well as the pumping of the grease.
The sewer line by the water line, that things will be sleeved?
It is, yeah, it's shown on the note, Dave, on page 2.
Okay, I missed it.
Yeah, that's on the note.
and the tanks have boots. I know the groundwater is pretty high
Yep.
relative to the inverts there.
Yep.
All right.
But I mean, something to think about here is like if she's actively selling it, she wants to operate this year until she sells it, like, approving the ability for her to use a tight tank this year with these plans, but then going back and asking for the plans to have, nitrogen filtering services on it, then the buyer has that. But right now what you're saying is, hey buyer, there's a deed restriction. You can only operate 3 months out of the year. You can't have toilets. There's no change of use. Like she's actually killing her purchase price. It's like we're doing her a disservice.
Yeah, I
I
understand that. She understands that.
Right.
I mean, I think if you're just saying it has to be a singular and a 100% size leaching field, if it sells, I don't know. I don't think that's that bad for someone. This is a pretty enticing property for someone to come in and renovate.
Yeah.
So if they do build this with a 25% area reduction and a 1 foot offset, 1 foot reduction to groundwater, that is larger and provides greater groundwater protection than if a singular was proposed at the start and there was then only a 2 foot groundwater requirement and a 50% area. Is it 50% area they can get, John, with the singular?
Yes, yeah, they could take a 50%.
Good point, Leslie.
So I'm thinking if we did in the future say you needed to add a singular, they wouldn't need to change the field at all.
Yeah, I guess.
That's, that is possible, correct. All they do is,
John, what happens to a singular system if somebody ignores the grease trap?
Leslie, can you translate? I got.
What happens to a singular system if someone ignores the grease trap?
Oh, the filter. So you have 3 components, 3 chambers in the singular. You have the initial one, which is primary settling. And then you have the second one, which is the aerator. No big deal there, but once it goes through that 3rd chamber, which is the filter, that will clog up
Right.
So everything backs up, Fred, to answer your question.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. I think we're there. Are we ready? Can I make a motion?
Yeah.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve the variance requested, acknowledging the seasonal use, fact that there are no bathrooms in the restaurant, with the understanding that should the property change use or sell and renovations are proposed, bathrooms added, that the septic system incorporate a singular system, which would leave the leaching field actually oversized for the reduction typically granted for a singular system, with also including ensuring rubber boots go on the tanks, and that the grease trap is connected into the septic tank on the design plan. Was there one other thing I'm forgetting? Oh, and that the this fact is recorded, you know, to the title of the property at the registry, Essex South Registry of Deeds.
Yeah.
Pumping records for the grease trap.
And pumping records for the grease trap be provided to the health.
Hey, so Fred was asking if it only could be a singular, is it singular of equal ilk?
Um,
And we didn't hear the other comment because we were talking here.
I would say it doesn't have to be a singular. I guess, yeah, it doesn't, it could
But
be
we're
another,
comparable.
it could be another nitrogen reducing, it could be a fast.
Exactly.
And then we didn't hear what you said about the deed, I think, or whatever your last statement was.
So just that the, you know, the fact about the change of use or sale of the property, you know, requiring the secondary distributed unit just be recorded so that it's not lost in the record and we can all feel like we're not doing the wrong thing here.
Can they open?
Just before we're done with this motion, so the putting on the deed would be if there's a change of use or sale of the property, they would need to add a singular or comparable nitrogen reducing treatment device. Was there anything else that needed to happen or get put on the deed?
That's
It would have to come back to the board.
And fats, grease
There you are.
monitoring?
Yes. There you go.
Yeah, pumping records to ensure,
Pumping, yeah.
yeah, annual, at least minimal annual.
The new one.
Okay, so fats, grease monitoring, singular or comparable nitrogen reducing, those two things need to go on the deed. And in the deed, it would say, in the case of a change of use or sale, these would need to, the singular would be needed, or comparable. But regardless, they need fats, grease monitoring, pumping annually. And that would go on the deed. Is this correct?
I don't
Okay,
think the pumping records need to go on the deed personally, but
But the fact of-
if other members feel that way.
So just would need to be in the Board of Health
Appro-
plan approval letter that they need
Yeah.
annual, okay.
Or whenever they need to pump it out. I don't know what the frequency is for a
Yeah, I think
1,000
that's
gallon.
part frequency, right? Like annual isn't necessarily right, depending on how much they're dumping in.
Exactly.
Would this automatically come back to the board or should it be in the deed?
It would not, it should, I don't think it should need to come back to the board.
If it was purchased?
If it was purchased, if on the deed it says you need to add a singular, it shouldn't need to come back to the board.
Because
Because
we'll have to demonstrate the plan design for the singular.
it would need to come to the health department.
Yeah.
Yeah. But carry comparable next to singular all the way through.
Yes, comparable next to singular all the way through. Yep.
Because the technology's changed.
Change of use, sale, record on the deed. The singular would be needed or comparable. Okay.
John, could I ask you please, why is it that there's no connection to city sewer? Is that a question of economics?
No, they went all of Tolman Ave and all of, you know, the several houses down the bottom of the hill, including the cupboard. We've been, Fred, we did a plan. The city just doesn't want it. They don't want to see any kind of pressure, low pressure system going into that. So my envision is to have a lift station put down there and to have everyone connect to that. But there's no appetite at the DPW for that. And that's why
Thank you.
well documented. If it means anything, Lobsterland, we do have a very similar system. It's within 200 feet, and that's all pumped up here. It's very similar, no advanced treatment, but there's a heavy emphasis on maintenance of that grease trap.
Yeah.
I can tell you that.
That's correct. And nothing.
So I think we have a motion on the table.
I'm sorry, we have the other variants.
We'll
Yeah,
talk about that one next. We'll talk about that one next. So I think the motion is to record on the deed that in the case of a change of use or sale, that a singular or comparable nitrogen reducing system be installed. Is that correct, Thor?
Yep.
Anyone want to second that?
I will second it.
Eric seconds. Call for a vote.
All in favor?
Marco,
yes.
yes.
Oh, I heard 3 yeses.
I think it has to be by roll call if it's
Oh,
remote.
correct. Yep. So Thor, yes. Marco?
Yes.
Mark, yes.
Eric? Eric, okay.
Mark, yes.
All in favor? Oh, sorry. Motion carries.
Which variances were you motioning against when you just did that vote?
Yeah. Ooh, it just happened.
Maybe somebody that has a message.
Just have to plug this in. I think it maybe just dies after a couple hours. So I guess for the record, I think we were just voting on 3 variances, the ones that have to do with the entire leach field, the entire septic system, I should say. And there was a 4th variance request that we haven't discussed, which I think is completely separate, which I think we now need to talk about, which is to allow the installation and use temporarily for this season, the septic tank and grease trap as tight tanks so they can open as quickly as those can be built.
I'm okay with it as long as it's only for the season, I suppose. I think, does that make sense?
And an alarm will be, installed at what, 3/5 capacity?
Is that a question for me, Dave?
Yes.
It was my understanding they're gonna move full steam ahead with the whole installation. And by the time so it wouldn't even be the season. I mean, there's only 2 months left, so it's July and August. There's 8 weeks here. So I'm not sure. By the time they're gonna be out of here, so Ronnie can build it over the winter. That's the way I understood it, so.
But will there be some kind of an alarm on these temporary tight tanks?
I don't think there's any plan to do that because we're talking 8 weeks. So by the time they're gonna monitor it as they're building it, they're gonna build the field, they're gonna install the tanks. It's probably gonna be 4 weeks by the time they get these tanks in. So I really, the timing, the answer is, I don't think so. Because it's not even a permanent solution. It's just a temporary situation. That's all it is. I'm not even sure the variance is needed because they can, as they're building it, oftentimes when we upgrade systems, they
Right.
put the tanks
True.
in so the
That's a good
homeowners don't
point.
have to get kicked out, they can,
Right.
and
Yeah.
they pump it. So,
But the only thing is, John, we haven't given them a permit to operate. So
Got it.
we
Yep.
would need to approve the use of the septic tanks if
Got
they
it.
want to open before the entire system is built.
yep. Understood.
That's good.
I think in the spirit of them trying to upgrade and get it done, I don't know. And the fact that they've lost a season, I do sympathize with them a little bit on that. I don't know. Shouldn't take too long to build it, I guess, but it is a fairly substantial system.
If I could, I talked to Ronnie, he says we can get those tanks in really quick. That's what those are his words. And we're talking 3,000 gallons of storage in these tanks.
Right.
Again, we've used 500 gallons last season, so that times 3, that's 1,500 gallons, so we're gonna have plenty of capacity.
Yeah.
You know, it's you know, again, we just made a call about it having to be 1,000 gallons a day or approve it. And so I guess proving it is saying that, you know, the records show, and there's not gonna be any requirement for, the building department to require them to use bathrooms and no longer use porta potties. Because if they use porta potties, if they have to start to use the bathroom,
So
that,
I spoke with the building department, and if there are grandfathered places,
okay,
and these bathrooms are through the kitchen. So it
Okay.
probably was never public restrooms.
okay.
Yep.
They're not gonna come up and say you need to go start using it, okay.
It would only be if they did a substantial renovation.
But then we have proof that the gallons per day are much less than the assumed 1,000 plus the 20 seats. But you're still saying it's 870. So that's a 3,000 gallon tank. They're gonna be burning.
So they only
870.
used 500 gallons for the whole season last year? Is that what you said? John?
500, yeah, when you average it out over the 90 days, it was between 400, I think, and 700. I have the water use meetings, but yes,
700 gallons per day for the 3 months of operation is what is written in the,
correct. You are correct. Yep.
and it's just a 3,000 gallon tank. That's fairly frequent pumping.
Yep.
So that we, and Leslie, they would have to have a contract for that, correct?
Yeah.
They'd have to, before you give them a permit?
That's wrong, isn't it?
Yep,
He doesn't-
they can do that.
Wind River is right there with Ronnie.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
Did we need to install an alarm and float, or do we just say have them pump go there every other day to pump?
Keep an eye on the water meter. That's your indicator.
Because it seems like they're gonna have to be there every 2 days to get it to that, to start, because it might be that the thing is filled in 3 days, so.
They can monitor their use by looking at their own water meter.
New behavior.
Yeah,
New
and behavior.
Yeah. No, it is new behavior for them, like,
Yes,
they'd have to be clear on that, they had to. do
Yeah,
that.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything. You could ignore an alarm too, I guess. They just have to do it. So I'm sure that they don't want sewage coming out of their tanks onto the restaurant.
It'll back right
Patio
up
either.
into this facility if they
Yeah.
don't. So
Yeah, yeah.
So they'll need a pump contract to be out there every other day.
or as needed. Yeah.
Really do.
$450.
No, it's a little less. Yeah.
So I would motion to approve the variance request to use the tight tank or the septic tanks temporarily while the leaching field is being installed to allow the restaurant to open, assuming a pumping contract is secured prior to the construction permit being pulled.
Right.
Is there a second?
I second that.
All in favor? Marco,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
or yes? Any discussion?
No.
All right, motion passes.
Thank you all very much for the time. We really appreciate it, and Cindy does too.
Thanks, John. Sorry, we're still working through the whole land subject to cold storm flowage thing, and I know it's a
Yeah.
headache. It's a headache
Yeah,
for
I
all
mean,
of us.
that should be put in, I know it's in, everything follows the local regs as defined under the wetland ordinance. But the vertical, if that's the position, that's fine, just as long as we put it in the regulations, then we'll design by that,
Yeah, we're just trying to find a consistent point, and we're getting there.
Yep, I got it. Thank you very much. Oh, Leslie, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about ACEC, or is that gonna happen later?
We are gonna talk about that. But
Right.
before we do, John, will you make 3 changes to the plan and
Yep.
send it to us? And those are locating the cesspool,
Yep,
actually show the 10-foot sleeve
Yep.
on the plan, not just the note.
yep.
And the third one is changing how the grease trap needs to connect
Yep.
to the tank.
Okay.
Cool.
Do you want me to add a note on the grease trap pumping? Just, it doesn't hurt to have that note.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
All right, thanks all. I guess I don't need to hang around for the ACEC.
No, you're welcome to. You're welcome to stay. It
Okay,
would probably be helpful if you do.
okay, yep, sure.
All right. All right, so we have sanitarian report, ACEC elevation. Leslie, you can take it away.
I can't see this. So
You stop sharing, we can see.
I stopped sharing. Oh, okay. Why can't you guys? We're having start video. There we go. All right. So so we aren't hearing a particular request that is 91 Wingersheep Road tonight because we need to get clear on the elevation that the ACEC is in Gloucester currently. So there's a 200-foot setback required for a septic system to the ACEC, but what elevation is the ACEC? And from talking with the Conservation Commission, from talking with the conservation agent, I should say, Chuck Shade, the current practice is that it's elevation 10 using the datum of NAVD. There's been NVAD?
I think so.
NAVD or NVAD, whichever one it is. So I don't know. Did that say everything? I really kind of bumbled about there.
No, I think Chuck's position was that he's following state guidelines, and the state guidelines leverage that datum.
Right.
And he is not willing to change to other datum. He's sticking with the datum that's there. So
Yeah.
Do you want me to add some color, Leslie?
Add some color?
So-
I don't understand what he's saying.
I think all we need is that statement made so that we can then have that, that's the path that the city's following. And so therefore, for 91 Wingersheep, they would have to put a variance request in to ask for that to be, accepted at a lower number.
Did everybody hear that?
So
Did you hear what Dominique said?
Leslie, maybe I can explain it a little bit clearer to maybe Marco, Fred, and those that aren't familiar with ACEC. The ACEC stands for Areas of Critical Environmental Concern. That was promulgated by the state legislature various times for different areas of critical environmental concern. In Gloucester's case, it's Farm Creek and only Farm Creek associated with the Essex River. That's the only what we call ACEC in Gloucester. You have other ACECs out middle of the state, the Quabbin Reservoir. There's different areas of critical environmental concern. So in this case, Gloucester's wetland ordinance, soon after that was promulgated in 1979, they, when I say they, the Conservation Commission defined this particular setback for setback to wetlands, in this case, as a minimum of 200 feet from ACECs. So what they define the ACEC is elevation 10 based on what we call National Geodetic Vertical Datum of 1929. So that is elevation 10. That's just a vertical, a horizontal plane rather, above mean sea level. So in 2014, the vertical datum for floodplain maps, the city's datum, all the current GIS maps are based upon national NAVD. So it's the North American Vertical Datum of 1988. And there's a 0.88 inch foot difference, almost a foot difference in elevation in terms of how it's read. It's still the same elevation vertically above sea level. It's just based on this other datum, it's a difference. So everything dropped 0.88 feet. And that's all it comes down to is it's the same if you're driving 55 miles an hour. It's the same as so many kilometers per hour. It's just a different measure of unit of measurement. And I don't want to steal Dan Ottenheimer's analogy from the last meeting. I think he put it in a different context, but still the same metric conversion. And that's all it is. We're not looking for anything different. We're just looking for a coherent understanding of which datum it is. It's that simple. Is it NAVD 88 or is it NGVD 1929? So, and that's elevation 10. So it makes a big difference horizontally in these floodplain prone areas, such as Wingersheik and the backside of Wingersheik. And that's it. Dave, I know you have a lot of experience. Thor, you have a lot of experience in this. I just wanted to add some color for those that don't understand what we're talking about.
Well, John, thank you for your impression of John Madden. But besides Farm Creek, there are other places along Concord Street that are also part of the ACEC.
Yeah, sorry.
Right. And I think this is the Conservation Commission's decision on, whether they're going to use the 10-foot before or after. And the Septic Subcommittee should follow what the Conservation Commission decides rather than do something different.
Yeah.
That creates havoc.
I agree.
Differently. So.
And that's exactly the way Nancy Putnam at DEP indicated. She said that to Chuck, you guys have to make that decision in your own regulations. And Ipswich has already done it. They make it very clear. It's on NGVD 1929 datum elevation 10. And 9.2 for NAVD. That's all it is. We're just looking for clarification on that. And it's the same number, it's the same setback. It's just you can't say it's the same because it's not in terms of elevation 10. Is it this datum or is it that datum?
So John, in short, it may be the right sermon, but the wrong church.
Something like that. Yeah, Dave. Yeah, exactly. So that's all. We're just looking for right, but it does make a big difference when you're talking about horizontal setback and everything we just talked about in terms of what are we looking for relief on? Do we need relief? Do we need a variance? If we need variance, but I can tell you this, there's been several upgrades along Wingersheik that are within 200 feet of the ACEC based on what we're talking about now, or if we're going to use the GIS. So there's all different interpretations of the boundaries for ACEC. If GIS is historically what we used, but it's not by definition what's used under the ordinance, which is strictly elevation 10 on NGVD, National Geodetic Vertical Datum of 1929, which is antiquated. It's antiquated. It's out. No one uses that now.
Okay,
John,
John, just to be clear, I just wanted so therefore for 91 Wingersheik, they need to ask for a variance because they don't meet that 10-foot requirement, right?
The 10-foot requirement.
Elevation 10.
Elevation 10.
They do for.
I think we don't know yet.
For NGVD 1929, they meet it. It's where out.
But we're not. That's not what the city's taking into account. So therefore.
Wait a minute. If we could just stop. Who's the city? Are you talking about, Chuck?
Yeah,
I'm
so
talking about the city of Gloucester, and we are all acting right now, and we're using NAVD as datum. And so
you're not using NGVD. That's what I'm saying.
No, we're not.
Okay, so is it elevation 10?
and
Which datum? Which datum?
On NAV, so when I talked to Chuck, he said that until the state makes a decision that we should shift to 9.2 NAVD, he feels that we need to stay at elevation 10, even though we're using NAVD. He doesn't, the elevations out there in the world that we're using today are typically NAVD. Is that right, John?
Yes.
Right.
1988.
Right. And
Which is the FEMA maps, the same as the firm maps, FEMA.
Right.
Yep.
And so when Chuck reads the legislation, it says elevation 10 for ACEC with the, and I forget the language, it's something like the most applicable datum. And to him, that datum is NAVD because that's what we're using today. So he wants to hear from the ACEC program.
He did hear from ACEC.
That it should shift from elevation 10 to elevation 9.2 under NAVD before he will make that shift. So he's going to stay at 10, but it's NAVD. So the septic subcommittee should follow suit.
Did he put that in writing, Leslie? Because I haven't seen it.
He has not yet put it in writing.
He plans to put it in writing. I'm happy to send it to you.
I've asked for it. We've asked for it in writing. He said he'd put it in writing. But he did say today that the email I sent to you about 91 Wingersheek, that summed it up, his position. So I'm expecting something very similar from him.
So the email you sent, that was yesterday where you said we wouldn't be on the agenda. And
Yep.
that was, and let me just look for his language here because we're just looking for, some rationale and some, some decision. That's all. Because Nancy Putnam says, John, this is up to Chuck, the regulators. This
Yep.
is so when you look at the legislation, it's very clear. It's NGVD 1929 datum.
So what he read to me, and I saw it on his screen, is it didn't say NGVD. It said some language that was the most applicable or the most whatever. It was a vague term about datum. And that's how he's able to say today we use NAVD. So, and the legislation says elevation 10. So he puts those two together to be elevation 10 NAVD until and unless the ACEC program at DEP changes it officially and tells him to use 9.2. That's what he said to me.
Right.
And that I put in that email that I sent you on Tuesday.
So now, therefore, it's 10, elevation 10 by definition of NAVD datum is the decision of the city. And so therefore 91 Wingersheek needs to ask for that variance in their application because they don't hit that standard.
And if Chuck does put it in writing, I will forward it to you.
Okay.
Yep.
I just, as long as the members of the board understand that several of these have been granted, like next door, you have a system that was granted to 77 for 8 bedrooms recently just installed this year, as you know, Leslie. They didn't have to ask for that because it was based on the other. So this is a new process, and I just wanted to make sure everyone is aware of that. And I'm, it's not a warning. I'm just educating like Thor, Dave, whoever, Marco, that they need to understand should they deny a variance to this effect, which was never had to be requested in the past. Everyone understands the stake. That's all. Dave, I don't know if you have any thoughts, Thor, if you have any thoughts, but it's a good discussion to have. As long as we understand what the rules are now, which seem to have changed, then that's fine. It's okay with me because we just put it on the plan, asking a variance. But as long as everyone understands what it is that we're talking about, that's the best thing.
I do just have one comment, and I brought this up at the last meeting, but I want to be careful because when we discovered that land subject to cold storm flow, which was under our jurisdiction, you know, that was because it was listed in the Wetlands Protection Act as a coastal resource area. And I don't know the answer as to whether I understand this is a generally saline, salty, you know, resource area, but unless, in my opinion, the ACEC is defined in the Act, Wetlands Protection Act, or the Gloucester Ordinance as a coastal resource area, we wouldn't have jurisdiction over it. It would be conservation. They have their own 200-foot requirements for new leaching fields. So I do think, just as a point, we need to clarify that 100%. And I realize that it is much of the ACC consists of salt marsh, which thereby has a 200-foot coastal resource area buffer under our regulations. But the specific designation of the ACEC might not necessarily grant us jurisdiction over as a coastal resource area. So I do think we need to confirm that.
Thank you for that, Laura.
And then Thor, are you saying because sometimes the ACEC might not be a salt marsh?
Yeah, like in my backyard, you know, I have salt marsh. I have, you know, all the salt. It's brackish water, but would be considered salt marsh, is my understanding, and that's determined by, you know, a wetland scientist or someone that knows. It's generally defined by what's growing in the marsh. You know, there's freshwater marshes, but the determination of whether it's salt marsh, that gives it, you know, that's a coastal resource area as defined in the Wetlands Protection Act. And that is probably what makes up most of the ACC. But I just want to make the point too that, you know, there's probably points of it that don't have a coastal resource area in it. And I don't know if AC itself is designated as a coastal resource area under the ordinance, Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance, or the Wetlands Protection Act. They're probably all coastal resource areas one way or another, but.
So the Gloucester Board of Health regulations refer specifically as defined under the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance. So as opposed to the Wetland Protection Act. So they refer to the resource areas as defined, which are more restrictive than the Wetland Protection Act. So that's how this whole land subject to coastal storm flow, which kind of came about, I think, on Atlantic Street property. For that's kind of where it sort of started, you know, and I've been doing this a long time. We put, you know, Title V allows you to put a septic system in a flood zone. It's just not, there's no regulation to the contrary, vertically or horizontally. So this, you know, so it's a unique situation under the Gloucester regulations and under the Board of Health regulations, which directly refer to the Gloucester wetlands as defined by the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance.
Okay. So Dave, did you have any thoughts?
I can't comment on Conservation Commission things here. I have to keep, you know, those two hats separate.
Okay. Do we have anything else? It sounds like we kind of have to wait for Chuck to kind of make a determination to how it's going to be treated, and then
we'll go ahead and resubmit the plan with the variance request for the next meeting. So now that we have at least we know the regulations or the interpretation now. So we appreciate that, and that's what we're going to go with. I just wanted the board to understand, all the members understand what we're talking about here, that it's still the same elevation 10 and 9.2. Same, it's the same thing. It's just called differently, or like Dave says, a different church, different pastor or something. All right. Well, I appreciate the time. We'll go ahead and do that. And again, we appreciate everyone's volunteer time.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
I got it.
So
I'm done with my briefing, Thor, if you want to move on to.
All right. Yeah. Public Health Director's update. Dominique.
So I just wanted to, obviously tomorrow's Leslie's last day. And so, thank you so much, Leslie, for all the amazing work. I've learned so much working with you. It's incredible. Me too. Yeah. And so I just wanted to give you all a briefing on how we're going to handle things once Leslie's gone, because obviously they take some time to get a replacement. The good news is the mayor granted us another headcount for this department, so we'll be hiring Leslie's replacement and an additional headcount, which is much needed and sort of speaks even partly, but not even fully the way the department used to be run. So
Yes.
we're excited about that, and that came with hard work on the mayor's part to find a way to make that happen, because I obviously had growth in my department in a time when he was facing a lot of slack. So I think he really appreciates what we've been going through, trying to get through everything. So that's great. In the meantime, though, work is going to have to keep going. And so what we've done is we have a few different solutions. Leslie had an outside resource in Isaac Duro, who will no longer be doing plan inspection at his choice because he can't handle the scheduling with that and his the time it takes with his current role. So, but Isaac is going to be doing soil inspections for the ongoing future as we need to offload. We also are hiring in the interim a health agent out of Danvers, whose name is Tom Mineta, who Isaac recommended to be doing plan review. Now, Tom Mineta will be getting some of the plan review, but the majority of the work that we're going to be doing, the inspections of existing, in process systems, any of the administrative work that's required for this role. We are bringing in Weston and Sampson on a temporary basis, so we'll have somebody sitting at the desk where Leslie used to sit, being able to field questions, managing the public, and making sure that we're not losing any ground in the work that we're doing. So we had hoped to be able to have them sort of transitioning this week while Leslie's offboarding, but in typical municipal style, paperwork takes longer than we'd like. And so they're likely to be starting next week. And so we're going to have, hopefully you all won't hear anything except for, next round of review. But just to be aware of that, I'm going to be sending out an email communication to all of the designers that Leslie's been working with, letting them know. I don't think you've notified them all that you're changing. Your email has said the same, but you haven't said like, hey, I'm leaving, here's what we're going to do. So I'm going to be sending out a note on Monday to that effect to say, here's the plan going forward, here's who your contact is. I'm going to put my own name there as an escalation point in case something, is going really south, just so I can be aware of it. But hopefully we'll have some, replacement in good order, and again, have more staff to better serve the city. And in that area, the additional staff will not only take on some of the administrative burden that Leslie was handling as well as all of the work, but we're also going to, really amp up our efforts to work on compliance. So septic systems that are in non-compliance, people that are not properly, checking their systems within the 3.5-year window that they have to, all of these operation and maintenance schedules that we're approving, just making sure that we've got eyes on it and that there's, because obviously if they fail, we're in a worse situation than had we rejected it. So I'm excited about, improving the operational scope of the department and making sure that we're doing the best we can to, do our job. And then hopefully we'll see a limited break in service with Leslie's departure. But of course, she has been doing everything for so long. We've been working with her actively for the past couple of weeks, trying to pull everything out of her brain and out of her internal systems. And we have our own little Leslie brain that we've made now of all of the work that she does.
It's living on fruit.
Like 134 rows. It's like 134 rows long. It's not a small list.
It's nice to see that her job is not gonna have 2 or 3 people doing it.
Yeah, 2 people plus administrative support as well. People part-time administrator.
I think it drove me crazy.
Well, I think she tried really hard to do it, and obviously, couldn't do it all. It's like, and there's a lot of things that what won the mayor over is that there's a lot of things that we should be doing that we're not doing. So we're excited about this coming year. We're sorry to lose Leslie, but we're excited about the vote of Congress to be the administration.
Where are you heading?
Salisbury?
Salisbury. Good. That's good.
Good luck.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you.
So are there any questions about that? I just wanted to be sure you all knew sort of what our continuity plan was. Good.
No, thank you. And thank you, Leslie, for all your hard work. And I can probably speak for Dave and that we know it's a tough job, and yeah, so we appreciate it.
Thank you. I've enjoyed working with all of you. I've learned a lot. I appreciate it. It's just a lot of hard work, and I'm getting too old for such hard work.
When I first met Leslie, I asked about this committee, and she's like, well, they're really my working group, like my sounding board, like they're the people that I confer with to do things. And so I think this team has been really important to her. and helping her get stuff done.
Yeah.
So however we can help in this transition, let us know.
Thank you, appreciate that,
Okay.
absolutely.
Should we mention when your next meeting is gonna be?
Yep,
July 20. It's the fourth Thursday. It's on your calendars already.
Good.
25th. Anyway,
right.
Right?
He's the chair. He gets to say adjourn.
Or you're like.
Oh, do we need a motion to adjourn? Do we?
Yes.
No.
Okay, I'll motion to adjourn. Anyone can make a motion.
Second.
All in favor? Marco's gone. So Thor, yes.
Eric, yes.
All right.
Thank you. Good meeting.
All right. Thank
Hey,
you
guys.
all.
Thanks.